Hi there, I'm Claire Whalen, and you're listening to the Claire in a Chair podcast.
And I know I can tell you anything. You won't judge, you're just listening. Yeah.
Hi there, and welcome to episode 93 of Claire in a Chair. And today we have a very special guest joining us on the pod. Today we have Miss Cassy Cox from Global Newborn Solutions joining us. Today we're going to be talking all things nonprofit organizations, and I actually have a personal connection to this organization, so this means a lot to me. Me and my twin brother Adam, shout out Adam, were born premature because we were twins. We were born 1 month early. And because of that, we then were put in the NICU and had to use incubators to keep us warm. And that helped me and Adam survive and grow into who we are today. But it came to my attention that preemies in other countries don't have that exact same medical care that we have. And when this came to my attention, I knew that I had to interview Miss Cassy Cox about it because this is all about Global Newborn Solutions mission. They have created something called the Dream Warmer, which is a portable incubator for underdeveloped countries. This helps the preemies born be able to stay warm and is saving many lives every single day. So thank you so much, and join me in welcoming Cassy Cox on the pod. Hi, Cassy. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast.
Hi, Claire. Thanks for having me today.
Of course. So Cassy is from Global Newborn Solutions, and this cause is actually really close to my heart because me and my twin brother Adam were actually born preemie and needed incubators, and we were in the NICU. And you'll hear a little bit more about Global Newborn Solutions mission later, but we have a very close connection to them, and I'm so excited to have you on the podcast.
Well, thank you. Your story is very inspiring, and my story as well is very
Yes.
linked to this. So I'm excited to have this conversation today.
Yes, let's just get right into the first question. Can you talk a little bit about the mission of Global Newborn Solutions for those who do not know?
Sure. So Global Newborn Solutions is a nonprofit, and we really focus on creating context-appropriate tools for to prevent newborn mortality in low and middle-income countries mostly. And so, as an example, we have our premier innovation is called the Dream Warmer, and it's a non-electric dream. It's a non-electric warmer, so something you would use in place of an incubator to help keep babies warm. And like you probably know, all preemie babies need this because when they're inside their mom's belly, they're supposed to be there for 40 weeks. And inside mom, they're totally warm and they don't have to actually learn how to keep themselves warm until they come out. So if you come out early, you need to be warmed all the time. And so this is really helping to prevent neonatal mortality in places where they don't have enough incubators.
Was there a specific moment where you realized this is what I need to do? Because I know your story as well is very inspiring.
Yeah, so thank you for asking. I love telling this story because it's so meaningful for me, and I might get a little emotional because I do every time.
Okay.
Um, so for me, I worked in humanitarian work for a long time. So I worked with refugees. I worked where there might be a crisis, so a famine or maybe a war, and I was working all over the world. And I actually met my husband in Kenya.
Oh,
And
wow.
yes, and I was pregnant with twins, and I was working in Somalia. So I was working in Somalia, and I was pregnant, and I actually started to feel like a little bit strange one day. And I told my team, and they said, okay, you should go back to Kenya, which was only like an hour and a half flight. And I went back and I found out I was actually in early labor at 24 weeks. And yeah, and in that moment, I didn't, even as a pregnant woman and even as somebody who worked in the field, I didn't truly understand what it meant for a
Yeah.
place to have all the right tools to be able to help babies like you guys or like my
Yeah.
girls. And I found out in that moment that in the country where I was, in Kenya, where I was living, they actually only had a very small number of incubators. It was 8 at the time. And I had 2 babies. And so they were not able even to support my babies. So I had to be medically evacuated back to America. And luckily, my babies were born at 29 weeks. So they stayed in a few more weeks. But
Yeah.
it was a very stressful flight back.
Yes.
And then they were in the NICU like you guys for several weeks. And sort of from that moment, I really wanted to be a part of this, but I'm not a doctor. So I was like, how can I use my skills? Right. And I ended up finding Dr. Hansen, who invented the dream warmer. And she is a neonatologist at Boston Children's Hospital, and wrote her a message similar to the message I got from your brother saying,
Yes.
this cause is really important to me and I would love to work for you on this. And so that's how I ended up getting involved with Global Newborn Solutions.
That was so beautiful, and I love your story so much. So I'm so glad we got to include that in the Claire and Share podcast as well. What are some of the biggest challenges that you've seen firsthand that mothers and newborns around the world face?
Yeah. That's a super great question. And it's actually not a question I'm asked very often. So
Really?
thank you
Wow.
for,
Of course. Yeah.
yeah, because I think people think a lot more about just the challenges of doing the work, really. And I think mothers and babies everywhere. So I actually just got back from Guatemala,
Oh, wow.
and yeah, and the mom's there. So it's different than a lot of places. When a baby is born and if the baby is stable, they send the baby home. And so these were all moms at home and they were using the dream warmer. And it was really emotional because the stress, I mean, I think probably everybody knows that every mom has a lot of stress. So
Yes.
even if it's a newborn and it's not a preemie, it's still very stressful because it's, you're figuring it out and every baby is different. But I think the thing that was really brought home to me when I was in Guatemala is that when you have a preemie baby or you have a baby that has maybe low birth weight or some other challenge, the stress is even more. And so for
Oh,
moms, it's so stressful. Like you just want to help your baby and you maybe don't know how and you don't have the right tools. And so I think there's a lot of stress on moms,
yeah.
particularly in environments where they don't have the right tools. And then I think the other thing I think about is that, they don't have these context appropriate tools. So in a place like, Zambia, where I was not that long ago, they have actually a lot more incubators than other places, but many of them were not working. And so, and even when they were having brownouts. So the electricity would go in and out, which is obviously not good if a baby's
Yeah.
in the incubator. So our dream warmer really we try really to focus on creating solutions that can be usable in that place, right? And so if you don't have consistent electricity, you can't really use an incubator very well. So I think there's this challenge of this large amount of stress on the people who are really close dealing with these moms and these very vulnerable babies. And then there's also this challenge of tools that are right for the environment, because an incubator is an incredible tool, but if you
Yeah.
don't have constant electricity, it's not going to work,
For sure.
right? So I think those are probably the two big challenges that I always see.
Wow, that is, and I think it just puts it into such an insane perspective because as teenagers, we don't really realize the struggles that some of these countries are facing. And so I love that you brought that to our attention for sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Like, what's an experience that you always find yourself going back to?
Oh, that's really tough because I actually feel like there's just so many in my mind. Um, oh gosh. I definitely like obviously going into labor in Somalia when I was very hot. I was wearing like a hijab and I was so hot, and I just this moment of like realizing something was wrong was sticks with me a lot. But
Oh,
I
for
think the thing that I recently, like even when I was with these moms in Guatemala, all of them, were clearly feeling very stressed, right? But at the end, like everybody's just still so hopeful, and there's so much like love and hope for their babies. Like one mom was like, my baby is going to live to be a nurse or a doctor because she's here for a reason. And even I'm getting emotional just saying it, but I feel like that's the thing that like really makes me do this work. So even if it's really hard sometimes, right, to be with a mom, I was once with a mother who had twins and she lost one of the twins, which was very sad and very hard as a twin mom because I can't imagine that. But
yes.
in the end, that mom was so gracious and so grateful for having one of her babies, and I feel like that's the thing that keeps me going, is that people are very strong and women are very strong, and
They're
at
so
the
strong. They're so
yeah, and at the
strong.
end they're just like, they want to have hope and they want to have dreams, and I think that's the most beautiful thing that always sticks with me everywhere I go.
That's so beautiful in that story. Oh my goodness. As a twin myself, I mean, I couldn't imagine what that mom was going through. So that is
Yeah.
beautiful. What's something this about this work that has completely changed your perspective on life?
Oh my gosh. Well, I definitely think my own, it's kind of strange because birth is like a thing that all of us got here through birth, right? Like you got here through birth, your mom got here through birth, I got here through birth, but yet it's kind of like this mysterious thing and it's so different for every single person, right? And so I feel like that is a thing that I learned that it's so different everywhere you are, and people have access to different things. And I think my perspective really shifted once I realized that other moms like me, I'm an American, so, and my
Yeah.
company was obligated to bring me back to America for my
Uh-huh.
babies to be born. But like my own sister-in-law, I'm married to a Kenyan, so my sister-in-law, she lives in Nairobi. God forbid something happens to her ever if she is in this situation, she's not going to have the same access. And I just want every mom and every family to have good care for their family.
I love that so much. As a teenager, like I said, sometimes these causes and these problems can feel just so out of reach, and we often have the mindset, I don't have any impact. What would you say
Mm,
to a teenager who wants to help but feels like they won't have an impact overall on a global issue?
yeah, that's a really great. I mean, I feel like your brother's a great example of this, right? I think if you're super passionate about something, you can have an impact. Like I was a person who I knew I wanted to do good in the world. I didn't exactly know how to do that because I hadn't met someone like me before, right? And I really hadn't known that this type of work existed. So I think I would say if you feel like you really want to do something in that way, then you should try to find somebody who will be open to like sharing with you about it. Because I think the biggest challenge is actually seeing it, right? So like having that experience. But I think every small thing helps. So I think, even just having it's easy to have an impact just by sharing a mission, right? So like if you
Sure.
hear about a mission that you're passionate about and then you go tell somebody else, they might not have ever had that experience or thought about that mission. And I think a large part of what I do is all based on sharing this mission and sharing this challenge. And even that is something that where you can really have an impact on something that might not be close to home or might be very far from you or far from your own personal experience.
That is so true. What advice would you give to a teenager, like you said, who's always had a heart for humanitarian and service work, but isn't sure about turning it into a career?
Hmm. Great question. I think the best thing to do is to try to get involved somehow and see if you get more excited by doing it or less excited, right? Because I think the thing that is, this is true for me, even as somebody who does this every day. I love my job. I am one of the people who just loves my work. I wake up
I can
every day so excited.
tell, for sure.
That's great. I'm glad I'm giving that off.
Oh, no, for sure, yes.
I feel so lucky, right? Like I'm so personally connected to my work and the impact is so real. But there are things I don't like about my work, right? Like I have to do boring things. I have to like read a contract, which is like so boring to me. I have to do other things that I don't love. And I
Yeah,
think that's one important thing to always remember, right? But the question is, if you can get in and you can get some kind of experience and understand whether the highs can outweigh the lows,
yes.
that's when you should pursue it for a job, right? Because like all those times I have to do the boring things or the things I don't love, I'm like, all right, here we go. I just got to do it so I can get to the good stuff. And the good stuff really outweighs it. So I would say, reach out, write an email to someone and say, I would love to learn more about it. And if you get a no the first time, keep trying because eventually you'll find someone who's excited by your excitement for their mission.
For sure. And you mentioned some of the things are not so excited about your job, but what are some things that you just love about your job? I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I'm glad you didn't ask me about the things I don't love. I don't want to talk about those.
Yeah.
Um, no, I mean, for me, I love meeting other moms. Like, it's so meaningful and so special to me to be able to share with other moms. I felt really alone. I didn't know another mom. I didn't really know a lot of twin moms. I maybe knew like one other twin mom.
Oh,
And
wow.
then I did not know anybody who had preemies. And so then I didn't know anyone to talk to. And I really get a lot out of like meeting with people who I share this very particular thing with. And so that's really nice. I mean, that's amazing. I also get very energized by talking with people who are excited also about it. Like it gives me like more and more energy. So even if I'm just sharing with someone who, maybe is just a person I meet on the street or somebody like you, right? Like you're like, we're just going to have a chat. I
Yes.
love sharing about it. Right. And so I think I love talking about the mission. I love sharing about it. Let's see, what else do I love? And I love teamwork. I love being with people who care about the same thing as me. And
Yes.
so like we're all together and we're like joining together to like get this mission, and I just love that. So teamwork is also a huge part of what I love doing.
That's awesome. Where would you hope to see Global Newborn Solutions and the Dream Warmer in 5 years?
Oh my gosh, my dream. Okay, so my dream in 5 years is that there are several countries where we're able to really reach scale, meaning we're able to have enough dream warmers that all the babies who need to be warmed are getting warmed, and we're preventing hypothermia in
Yeah.
as much as possible, right? And so I think I would love to see maybe 3 to 5 countries like that, because once I think they set the example, it's going to be really easy for lots of other countries
For
to
sure.
like get on board and want to do it in their place. So I think that's really my goal, is to have 3 to 5 countries scaling the dream warmer and preventing hypothermia in those places.
I also don't think that teenagers and just a lot of people don't really realize the infant mortality rates, especially in
Mm,
other countries. And so I think that your mission is so good on kind of bringing that to bigger attention because teenagers, especially like me, before I my brother got interested in this cause, I had no idea what it
yeah,
was like being born in a different country, and I don't think that people realize that could so easily have been you. And
yeah.
it's so important to pay attention to these causes for sure.
That's right. Exactly. I mean, one of the things that I oftentimes will write or say is just that we don't think where you're born should determine whether you live, right? Like if
Exactly.
you are born, we believe you have the right to have a great life. And
Yeah.
so, we want everybody to have that. We want everybody to have access to all the care that they need. And I think the thing that I learned a ton working at this job, even though I had preemie babies, was this idea of like hypothermia in really hot places. Like, I
Oh
didn't
yeah.
know that was a thing, right? Like I was like, wow, I learned so much just even taking this job, even though I felt like I kind of knew a lot already about babies and preemie babies and things like
Yeah.
that. But I learned a lot about hypothermia and how that is a big contributor, even in very hot places, to babies unfortunately dying. And
Yeah.
so what happens when a baby gets really cold is that their whole body actually starts to shut down. And when the baby when their systems start to shut down, obviously if they stay like that for too long, they can die.
Uh-huh.
So something as simple as staying warm, it sounds so simple, right? But
Yes.
just can keep a baby alive. And I think that is like also something that should kind of stick with people, is that like most of the challenges we see, like this neonatal mortality, is very solvable. It just
Uh-huh.
takes people getting excited about the mission, and teenagers like you guys, like, putting your energies toward things that you really care about.
For sure. And as someone, my brother had hypothermia as well. So just this cause and thinking that there's babies out there that didn't make it because of hypothermia kind of just like makes me really emotional because I can't imagine what that would be like life without my brother, and I can't imagine how other people in other countries who have had hypothermia feeling like that. So I love your mission
Yeah.
so much, and I you're so right. It's such a solvable problem, and I'm so happy that we can shine more light on it through this chat as well. You
Yeah.
talk a
Thank
lot
you.
you talk a lot about purpose and compassion. Do you think
Hmm.
everyone has unique gifts or talents they're using to give back to the world in some way?
I absolutely believe that everybody has very specific gifts and they have a very specific role to play in our society. And so I think, and I kind of feel like that's why I'm in this position, right? I feel like I'm a mom who lived and worked in these environments. So I sort of understood that. And then I had this very specific experience that makes me very well suited to be in this
Yes.
position, right? And be able to speak about it and share about it in the places where it matters. And so I definitely believe that everybody has something in them that's going to make them very unique and special. And that can have an incredible impact in the world once they understand what that is.
How would you say that teens could start using those gifts philanthropically like you, even
Mm.
at such a young age?
Well, I mean, listen, there's so many ways that you can do that. I think there's like, of course, you can like do fundraisers and you can get
Yes.
your friends involved and things like that. There's like very obvious ways, right? But then there's also like, I think very simple ways, like using whatever platform you have. A lot of kids your age age use social media. And obviously be sharing about things that you really care about and sharing about why you care about them, I think is really important, because that's what gets people interested and that's what gets other people wanting to be involved, right? And so I think using your platforms, whatever that is, if it's the group that you're in or the team that you're on, or, you know, your Instagram or your TikTok, whatever it is, like using those platforms to share about what is important to you and why it matters, right? The why behind it, I think, is what really gets people interested to learn more about why it matters to you, right? So I think those are kind of the things you can do, the fundraising and stuff like that, but a lot of times just getting people to hear why it's important for you.
Is there anything that you would want teens to leave this conversation having?
Hmm. Yeah, it's kind of funny because I feel like, I don't know, does your generation know this? But I'll say the thing I want people to know is that you can make an impact. One person can make an impact, right? Like really, truly. And I think, you know, there's lots of like old school, really famous kind of examples of things like this. But I think, you know, really you can make a difference. And one person, it's pretty hard to make a huge difference as one person. But if you find your people who are also excited about the same thing, which you can do if you're talking about what matters to you, right? Then you guys can come together and you guys can really make a huge impact. And so I would say my advice is just believe that you can make an impact and find the people that want to have the same impact in the world with you. And then you guys can do some great things together.
Exactly. And I think it's so hard for teenagers to grasp the idea that you can make an impact in one person's life who can then take that impact and impact someone else. It's like the
Mm-hmm.
domino effect, like you were talking about earlier. It's
Totally.
and I love that Global Newborn Solutions and your personal experience as well is so beautifully showing that domino effect.
That's right. Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for joining me on Claire and Chair. It meant so much to me, and thank you so much for talking so beautifully and authentically about Global Newborn Solutions mission and about your story.
Yeah, thank you, Claire. This was a true pleasure. I'm super excited.
Thank you so much.
And I know I can tell you anything. You won't judge, you're just listening.